I got 1.5 million impressions in the last year. And so I did a little retrospective, looked at what performed well, what didn't perform so well, draw out some lessons here. I roughly doubled my impressions compared to 2023. And I'm going to talk about the changes that I made in the last year that I think contributed to this. I also took some notes on how to still win in 2025, because I think, I have a lot of conversations with founders, and I know a lot of people either want to start or take this more seriously, whether it's on LinkedIn or X or some other platform. And but it's obviously becoming more crowded. So took some notes on that. Let me jump in with a couple of things that I had planned. So Jamie, when people state their impressions, I think it's good to include on an audience of XX followers or on an audience that grew from X to Y during the same time period. Yeah, I agree with that. So let me just jump in. So these are my LinkedIn impressions for 2024. So 12 months of content. Where can I move this? Move this here. So you can see here 1.5 million impressions overall. This is a side-by-side comparison of 2024 versus 2023. So I published 161 posts in total, which is actually 31% less compared to last year. So I posted less, 1.5 million impressions compared to 800,000. Reactions 10,000 to 6,000, comments 5,000 to 2.6K, shares 200, 120. And you can see here right now I'm at 34,000 followers, and I started the year at 27,000 followers. So added about 25% followers, or 7,000 people. Posted on average twice a week. You can see here the graph. I stopped posting for about 3 months, which was not smart. I'll get to that period. That was a big mistake of this year. You can see a couple of bigger jumps here. Here was a little bit of a bigger jump. Here's a little bit of a bigger jump. Those were kind of my viral types of posts. And then this is kind of in comparison. If you look at 1.5 million impressions and you consider a $50 CPM, that's roughly worth $77,000. Now, I also pulled up all of my posts. So here they are. So this is right now all of my posts for 2024 ranked by impressions. So my top post got 200,000 impressions. It was this post. Talked to a SaaS founder yesterday who scaled from 0 to 700K ARR since January in 4 months. Here are the 2 brilliant GTM plays they're currently running, some context, and then broken down what they did or what he shared with me on a call. Got 1,000 likes, 220 comments. My second best post is the same post, reposted about 5 months later. That version got 91,000 impressions. It was basically the same post. The only thing that I updated was the revenue number, because obviously by the time that I posted it, that company had grown. They're actually a customer right now, and they scaled to 1.6 million ARR by the time that I posted this, which was 2 months ago. The rest is exactly the same, right? The rest is just literally copy pasted. This post obviously did less well, 330 likes, 91,000 impressions. I think the takeaway here is definitely you should repost your winners. When you have a good post, there's no reason, unless it's not applicable anymore, why 3 to 6 months later you should not just post the same thing again. My third best post was this one. Got 76,000 impressions, I think. If I was CMO at a B2B SaaS doing 1 to 10 million ARR and tasked with replicating the Chris Walker, Adam Robinson playbook for my founder or CEO, here's how I would go about it, and breaking it down in 5 steps. 300 likes, 76,000 comments. What definitely helped was that Adam Robinson liked and commented on the post himself. I'll just go through the top 5 and then we can talk about some insights here. Fourth best post was this one. This is actually a hiring post. This is not fully true because half of the impressions are paid. I first posted it organically, got around 30,000 impressions, and then I amplified it as a thought leadership ad. I'm hiring, looking for a first-time full-time copywriter to join, 40 to 80K per year. If you're in love with LinkedIn and the craft of copywriting, here's why you should apply, what you'll be doing, more about the job, what I'm looking for, et cetera, et cetera. We got about 100 really qualified people from this. And this was, people had to fill out a form attaching a video of themselves. So, the 100 people were like legit people. This wasn't like a random CV that someone sent me. From that, we ended up hiring two full-time people, Jeff and Jeannie, who are now with us. We're awesome people. And then the fifth best post, this one. If I was an early stage SaaS founder, pre-revenue to up to $1 million in ARR, trying to build awareness for and building on a very tight budget, here's how I would go about it. And then it's essentially a podcast business development strategy, broken down the whole thing step by step with the exact tools and templates to use. 70,000 impressions, 317 likes, 125 comments. And then you can see here, kind of goes down the list. A couple insights here. It's definitely power law, right? I got 1.5 million impressions. A single post got about, a fifth of that, or a seventh of that. So 15% of all my impressions for the year were generated by one post. That's pretty typical. You could definitely see a theme with the hooks, right? It's always attached to an outcome. It includes some kind of a number. Oftentimes it's revenue number. It's very specific. There's usually cliffhanger, right? Here's how I would go about it. This is where the line break would happen, right? Here's why you should apply. This is where the line break would happen. What I mean with line break, obviously, is on the feed, you get this see more thing, right? And that's 2 to 3 lines of text. So you want to make sure that you have a cliffhanger in there. And then same here and same here, right? And I think the reason why these types of hooks work so well is because there is now so much content out there that people are constantly talking about their opinions. And people are constantly talking about point solutions, right? Like, what's the point solution? Hey, I found this one thing, this one way to get a couple to rewrite my headlines, or here's one idea to improve your website, right? That's a point solution. A full playbook is a lot more valuable, where you really break it down how to create your website from scratch, right? What tool to use, how to structure your homepage, what subpages you should have, how to host it, how to get traffic to it, right? So sharing a full playbook rather than a point solution really helps. And then talking about real lived experiences and making sure that people know from the hook that it's a real lived experience, right? The reason why this post did so well is because I'm talking about a founder who actually accomplished this thing, right? And then the two things that he did to get this growth are actually interesting and a little bit outside of the norm or what people usually do. So it's valuable and it sparks ideas with people. But I'm not talking about here's how you should scale your company, because that's an opinion. I'm talking about a real thing that really happened, and I'm just reporting on it. The big mistake I made this year, as I said, is that I did a 3-month break of posting. The reason why I did that is because we had to stop onboarding new customers because we were at capacity. That was right when I did the hiring post, because I needed to onboard, train new people to deliver the service that we do. So I was like, what's the point of posting? I need to really focus on training and onboarding these people, and we're at capacity anyway. So I'll just, focus on the other thing, and I'll just stop posting for a while. The problem is that all of this is momentum. And when I stopped posting, first of all, it was really hard to get going again. I felt like I was out of ideas. I was not in that mode of creating content every week anymore. And and the, I think one thing that people often forget is just as there's a sales cycle where from the first call that you have with someone until they actually sign a contract, that's often multiple months. Now, there's also a marketing cycle, which is the time period from the first time someone ever hears about you or sees you for the first time, whether it's on the LinkedIn feed or through a blog that they find, to the time where that sales cycle starts and they actually reach out and they book a demo. That can often be months too, right? Because it's not like someone sees one of your LinkedIn posts and immediately goes to your website and books a demo with your sales team. Usually they see one of your posts, they see a second one of your posts, they see a third one of your posts. Eventually they're like, okay, this person clearly knows a thing or two. Let me follow them. Let me connect with them. Let me dive deeper. Let me look at their company to actually understand what they do in the first place. Now let me go back and talk to some people. And then eventually maybe they go to your website and book a demo, right? And so you lose all of that momentum the second you stop posting. So not going to do that again. I think when I look at my year this year versus last year, I think the thing that sticks out the most is that I posted less while I posted 31% less posts while almost doubling my impressions. And I think that switch really came down to focusing on quality over quantity. Instead of saying I need to publish every single day, maybe publish 2 or 3 times a week. That's still plenty. And instead invest more time per post. Like a lot of these best posts that you see here, they probably took me like 2 hours of actually working on it, right? Thinking about it, documenting all the steps, going back to, hey, what template do I actually use to book them? Coming up with a bunch of actual example questions that are really specific. Like this post took some time. This post took some time. This post really took some time, right? And I would rather spend more time per post, making it really, really valuable than maximizing the amount of posts. Now, I will caveat that with, I think you need to have an understanding of what good looks like for you. And that either comes from initially posting a lot so you can understand patterns, or having a really, really tight grasp on your customers and what they care about. Because if you know your customers care about this big priority, then you can go and invest 2 or 3 hours documenting a whole process or a whole playbook or a whole breakdown of how to go about solving that problem or achieving that goal or addressing that desire, because you validated that they actually care about it, and now you can just go ahead and invest time into that. I'll stop there. Are there any questions here? I saw one. Also noticed your hooks that landed all speak to a specific outcome for the audience instead of the how. Scale 1 to 6 million. Love the insights about real pack. Yeah. I think one thing that a lot of the people who do really well, I'll pull up Galaga. I think Galaga is a master at this, is including social proof inside of your hook, right? What I mean by that is if you read this, for example, I've spent 3 million as an executive buyer and 17 years in sales. Most sales training doesn't teach this. Here are 12 things I wish real B2B buyers told me on my first day in sales. That took me years of law. I mean, it's almost impossible to not click on read more. First of all, he built a ton of credibility, 3 million and 17 years in sales. He's very specific about what you will get out of reading this post. 12 things he wish real B2B buyers told him on his first day. And then when you open it up, and I think this is also really important, the thing that people do before they start reading, and you can kind of notice your own behavior of what you do on LinkedIn and then reverse engineer on how to create good content. The first thing you do is look at the person who posted. I'll break that. This is, I think, how most people consume content. When you're on your feed and you scroll, the first thing you do is you look at the person who posted, Ali Rubel. Now, your prior relationship with that person will determine a lot on whether you will engage with that post. If I know Ali, and Ali is awesome, and I think Ali is super experienced and knowledgeable in the things that I care about, and I've maybe had some interactions with him before, and generally I like and trust him, then no matter what the rest is, there's a good chance that I'll engage with it just because I like and know and trust Eli Rubel. This comes down to just being consistent with really high volume, high value, high quality content, right? Because you're teaching your audience on what to expect. And that's another reason why I prefer quality over quantity, is because if I read a post by Spencer and I was like, wow, I learned something, this was super insightful, the next time Spencer shows up on my feed, I'm a lot more likely to give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, last time I read something from him, this was super valuable, so I'll just go ahead and read another one. If Spencer posts 3 fluffy generic thing, then I'm kind of like, meh. I'm kind of like, I feel like I wasted some time here. The next time I see Spencer on my feed, even if that post might actually be totally different from those 3 that I read and actually be really good, chances are I'll just not give him a chance, right? So you need to make sure that with every interaction that you have, with every piece of content that you put out, there's real value, there's real takeaways. It's not just fluff and generic AI generated content. And people walk away with feeling good about having spent that time. Now that's the first thing people look at, is the person, right? The next thing they look at is the hook, right? This thing, before they click on read more. Actually, no, that's not true. The next thing people will look at is the amount of engagement that this post has. So I'll see, okay, this has 82 likes. This one has 666 likes. This one has 33 likes. And the more engagement it has, the more likely people are to engage with it because it's social proof, right? If I see a random post on my feed, even if I don't know the person, but it has like 700 likes, that already piques my interest to be like, why, what's going on here? Because it's clearly really working. I don't think there's really much you can do here except, I mean, you want to, there's often a flywheel that I notice. Once a post hits a certain critical threshold, of your own network engaging, and again, these are the people that already know and trust you, who click on the post because they know you, they recognize your name and your face, and they're like, I know Spencer, he might have something valuable to say, let me give it a read. If enough of them say, ooh, this was actually interesting and actually valuable, let me go ahead and comment and like on this post because I feel like I got something out of it, you get a critical like amount of those people, and that's when the post really starts taking off. Because then it starts, then the algorithm does its job, right? I think a corollary of that is how a piece of content impacts your business, your inbound, your bottom line, your website visitors is nonlinear and disproportionate to the amount of impressions that you get. Let's say you have 5,000 followers. They're all people who know you, you've connected with them before, and your average post gets, let's say, 50 likes. Almost all of those 50 likes will come from your existing network of your 5,000 followers who know and trust you. They already know about your company and know about what you do. Let's say that post gets 5,000 impressions, reach every one of your followers. That might not do anything for your business in that moment. Obviously, it still helps staying top of mind and build trust. Once you double that to 10,000 impressions and 100 likes, suddenly all the additional 5,000 impressions are completely new people who've never heard about you, who are now exposed to your business for the very first time. And that's where a lot of new opportunity comes from. For me, I would say that threshold is roughly 10,000 impressions. If a post gets 10,000 impressions for me, I know I stayed roughly within my network. Most of the people who saw the post and engaged with the post, who liked and commented, are people who already know me, who already follow me, who are already aware of roughly what we do. Once it goes beyond that, that's when I really start hitting a lot of new people, which again, to me, it just ties back to really making sure that you focus on quality over quantity, because one really great post can do 100x of what an average post can do for you in terms of follow growth, in terms of website traffic, in terms of inbound demos generated from it, et cetera, et cetera. Again, you need to understand what good means for you and your audience. But now, okay, the next thing people look at is likes. The next thing after that they look at is the hook. which is the first 3 lines of text, right? First million ARR is easy. All you have to do is ... more. We're losing 45,000 per month client in February. Old me would have panicked. New me isn't worried at all. Why ? How you email DM found me, blah, blah, blah. Right. That's the hook. And so to go back to Gal Aga, one thing that Gal Aga does really, really great at is his hooks. There's almost always social proof in there. So if I don't know Gal, right, and I'm not like, oh, I know Gal, he's awesome, I've learned things from him before, the thing that people ask themselves is, why should I listen to what you have to say, right? Like if you see some random person on your LinkedIn feed and their hook is something like really great and they're promising a big thing and they're like, here's how you need to rebuild your sales process from scratch to scale to 100 million. I'm like, who the hell are you to tell me how I should rebuild my whole sales process and scale to 100 million? And we know from experience that most content is shit, and that most people overpromise and clickbait with their content, right? So we're quite jaded when it comes to that. So there's a good chance that even though the hook is really great, I'm not going to engage with it because I'm like, why the hell should I trust what you have to say about that? But by including social proof, you're basically first communicating why people should pay attention to you versus someone else, right? If you read, I've spent 3 million as an executive buyer and 17 years in sales, he's communicating that he probably knows a thing or two about this stuff that he's about to promise me, which makes it much more likely to engage with it. Giving real stories and the real numbers is doing the same thing, right? Like, let me give you an example. If the hook, let's say you don't know me, you come across some, blog post or LinkedIn post by me, and the headline is how to do better cold calls. I'm like, I'm sorry, there's a million people who can tell me to do better cold calls. I'm not really sure I'm gonna trust what you have to say. But if the hook or the headline is instead, over the last 3 months, I've done 5,000 cold calls and I improved my meeting booking rate from 10 to 20% in that time period by changing 3 specific things. And here's what they are. Even if you don't know me, you're much more likely to click on it because you're not going to just share some opinion that you have. You're going to share real stats and real insights from doing real stuff that you documented. So the hook is the next thing that people pay attention to. Then once they actually click on read more, the next thing that they do is not start reading from the top down. I mean, you observe yourself, but I think that's most people. The next thing that they do is skim down, get a sense of kind of what's going on here in this post, what they can expect. And generally what you're looking for is you're looking at that last sentence oftentimes because you kind of want to skip to the conclusion and see how they're wrapping it up. You're also seeing the structure here, right? Like, is it like a massive block of text? Is it kind of readable? And then you also want to get a sense of, is this promise that is being made in the hook actually being delivered on? Right? Because if I now read, here is 12 things I wish real B2B buyers told me on my first day, and then I click on read more, and there's just like one paragraph, and that's all of the post, I'm not even going to read it because I'm like, you clickbaited me. You told me there's 12 things and now there's one paragraph. There's no way there's 12 things in this paragraph. But this structure, it's making me real confident that he is actually going to deliver on his promise that he made me, right? Plus, it's super skimmable. It's all broken down 1 through 12. Each is a very readable paragraph. So, and then I think, and I learned this from Tom Hunt, who, love him or hate him, he definitely knows how to bait engagement. I'm not necessarily a fan of his content because it's very fluffy and HR culture related. But one of the things, but I think the principle applies. One of the things he told me, right? You can see some of his posts went uber viral. You've maybe seen this guy. 300,000 likes. I know this post got 26 million impressions. I had him on the podcast. The way that you get people to engage with the content is by stating a strong opinion that people can now agree, rally around, or disagree with, right? Because that's what makes people engage. If you just share a 12-step thing and it makes total sense and there's no questions about it and everyone agrees because it makes a lot of sense and there's no real, common wisdom that you're disagreeing with, then yeah, maybe I got some value, but then I'm going to move on after reading it. What's the point of me commenting on it? People comment when they disagree with something, when they have a follow-up question, or when you spoke a truth that they want to rally around, right? I think those are probably the three things. So the way that he does it is that he intentionally leaves out a nuance that's kind of obvious, so that people then go ahead and point out the obvious nuance that he skipped over in the comments. But there's other, let's say, more palatable ways to doing that. But essentially, you wanna end on a strong opinion that people can then rally around or disagree with. Any questions here? Spencer, you also said, I've noticed that when people speak powerfully to my pain, that builds trust quickly too. I trust they have been through it when they say something about the problem. Yeah, totally. I mean, you got to speak your customer's language, obviously, and you got to show that you understand why this is a problem. But I would say, if you look at people who tend to do really well versus people who do average, this is a super gross generalization, but I would say people who do average focus a lot on why in their content. People who do well focus on how in their content. Because in the end, people look for solutions. And so you got to provide a solution. If I made a post about here's why you need to spend 30 minutes on LinkedIn engaging every day, it's like, okay, cool. But if I show you how, the 5-step process, the checklist every day to make sure that you spend your time efficiently on LinkedIn, that's generally what people are looking for, at least on LinkedIn. Any questions here? Or I'm happy to obviously dive into any specific things if someone's here trying to troubleshoot their own content or getting started with this. If you guys have questions, I don't want to just do a rant here solo.
Hey, Finn.
Hey, Prabjot.
Hey. So, sorry for not turning on my camera. It's late here. I'm in India at the moment.
Yeah, it's like you're in India.
At the moment, I'm in India.
So it's like 10 p.m.
It's like 11.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah. So, just wanted to understand more about how to navigate the content around B2B services sale. Rather than B2B SaaS sales, because what I see is a lot of the influencers on LinkedIn, they are more into the B2B SaaS. But then how about selling the standard uh, SAP services and then making the content around it, or what should be the content strategy for someone who is really starting up, has been a consultant, over the years, but then need to be working on the startup, and how should they be creating their own content?
Yeah. No, I don't know if it's just a bubble. I would say it definitely seems like there's more SaaS founders, but I mean, we're an agency. I do content on LinkedIn to get customers. Tom Hunt that I just showed, he's running a podcast agency. It's working wonderfully for him. So I don't think at all that this only works for SaaS founders. Honestly, I think that service providers have an advantage to SaaS founders, which is that you depends on how you run your business, but you're constantly working with people solving problems, and that's the source of the content, right? Like SaaS founders, oftentimes they might sell to, let's say, they sell some HR software to a head of HR, but really all they do is build a product. They have a technical background. How are you going to create content that a head of HR will find interesting and valuable, right? Like you can only
Yeah.
talk about your product and your features so much, and at some point you need to go beyond that and share expertise and thought leadership and insights and frameworks and processes, and so I think consultants and agencies and service providers actually have a competitive advantage.
The disadvantage of being too technical is that you can only think of the technical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think the playbook is always the same, which is who's my ICP,
Mm-hmm.
what do they care about, and then what expertise and insights do I have that actually speak to what they care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is such a thing as founder audience fit,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the best people who do this stuff, whose content performs the best, they have very strong founder audience fit, which essentially just means, if you're selling to account executives, you yourself are a sales leader and you've previously been an AE and you have 17 years of sales experience, right? That's Gal Aga's situation, right? Or if you're selling to um, operations leaders in manufacturing, you are an operations leader in manufacturing, or you've previously been one, or you constantly talk to a ton of these people every single week. Because then you have proximity to these people and what they care about and what they think about and what language they speak, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, I have been evolving my content around it. If you check my LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
I have been trying my best to, uh, you know, to kill two birds with one stone. One is like winning more business. Second is like attracting more talent to the organization. So I have to kind of mix the content in such a way that it is relatable to someone who wants to be part of our organization. And secondly, no, not this one.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, and the other thing is that
Can you help me
someone, yeah,
where?
Prabjot Singh Nair, I would type in here.
Okay, just send you a link.
Yeah, and the other content is like where I uh, have to make sure that even I attract more guys who would be interested in knowing more about my organization and about my services. So it's
Sure.
like kind of a double-edged sword I'm playing with.
Yeah, I mean, go. It's always tough when you try to talk to multiple people at the same time. So I would think about what's the bottleneck, right? Is the
Mhm.
bottleneck talent or is the bottleneck customers? And whatever the
Yeah.
bottleneck is, that's who I would focus my content on. Um, I think there's always some place for kind of documenting in public and sharing your growth and your company and what you guys are up to, and that definitely helps with attracting people.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you get good engagement. Um, but you're saying you're not happy with the results?
Yeah, because the sales cycle is too long, or maybe like I'm not putting the right content out there, so I'm not sure.
And who's your customer?
My customers would be like anyone who is into the logistics, transportation, and warehousing.
But like a 3PL or a logistics software company or
No, no, it's like someone who is already using SAP, and then they want to dig more deep into their SAP warehousing, SAP transportation, and SAP logistics. So someone who already has SAP implemented at their location or want to get only SAP implemented. So that's what we do. We are a SAP shop.
Yeah, I mean, I would, if I look at your content right now, a lot of it is kind of this, high level,
Yeah.
a little bit fluffy, culture related. When certain things need urgent attention, then you need to get into, like, this is probably a post that gets nice likes because there's a picture of you in here. It's kind of like a piffy thing that, maybe a lot of people can agree on.
Mhm.
But if it's not driving business outcomes the way that you want it to, I would just dive really deeply into defining a very clear ICP and then
Mhm.
just mapping out what are all those business priorities and goals and things that they care about, and then creating solutions to that. Right?
No,
None of these.
all these latest posts that you see, they're all directed towards attracting new talent.
Yeah.
So so these are not for the customers. For
Yeah.
customers, I still post them, but then recently I have been focusing more on attracting more talent.
And you're saying so that's the goal, attracting talent, but you're saying it's not attracting as much talent as you hope it would?
No, what I'm trying to say is that uh, you know I'm not hiring directly
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. This is one thing. The other thing is that I have to juggle between the contents of attracting more talent as well as attracting more business. So it's
Yeah.
like balancing the two is like the difficult the thing for me to handle.
Well, again, but what's the bottleneck? Is the bottleneck customers or is the bottleneck talent right now? Because whatever the bottleneck is, that's who I would focus on.
Both.
Well, but you only need, okay. I mean, what you could do is you could have someone else focus on one of the two, whichever comes more naturally to you, and then you find
Mhm.
someone else within the company who focuses on the other persona,
Mhm.
creating content around that. How do you balance content for different purposes, recruiting customers, podcasts, etc.? Yeah, I mean, I think it's super difficult, especially if you're trying to do it all through one account. I mean, we go through these exercises with customers where the goal is customers, but customer is a very broad definition for many B2B companies. Some are enterprise, some are SMB, some are financial services company, other are in the healthcare space. So it's like I think you do need to get very tight on understanding who you're speaking to. And, I do think you can't have eat your cake and have it too. Um, so I think the people who are doing best with their content are people who are very, very clear and very tight with who is that person that they're speaking to and trying to attract.
Yeah.
Now I do think the LinkedIn algorithm is evolving more and more, and I've seen this in the last year, more towards interest based versus follower base. So for example, if you I don't know if you guys use TikTok, but if you post a video on TikTok, it does not matter really how many followers you have. Like you can have 100,000 followers, and if you post a piece of content that doesn't resonate or that people don't want to watch or that the algorithm decides is not relevant for people, you will get no impressions on it. And then you on the flip side, you can have 100 followers, but if you post something that's just really, really good, you will get 1 million views on it. And so that's more and more becoming the reality on LinkedIn, in my opinion, where like you see these accounts who have 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, but they get 30 likes on their content. And then you have other people that have 2,000 followers, but they're getting 300 likes per post. Why? Because the content is better and it resonates with people, and then the LinkedIn algorithm happily distributes it to more people, right? And it doesn't care that you have 100,000 followers. If the piece of content is bad, then it's not going to be shown to people. And so what that means also is it still matters, but it's less important now that, let's say you have an audience of, let's say you have 3,000 connections on LinkedIn, and most of these people are like customers, prospects, that type of thing. And you have 0 connections of people that you might want to hire. If you create a piece of content that really, really resonates with that person who you want to hire, the LinkedIn algorithm happily distributes it to those people. If it's good and relevant, even if your audience does not consist of these people. I think one kind of hack to do this, and I can almost, depending on the hook that I write, I can almost control whether it's a founder who will get my content shown, or whether it's a head of marketing, CMO, marketing person. Because these two people care about two different things. And you can, like, one very simple way to do this, for example, is to just literally use a call out, right? So the first sentence of your post or of the hook says, if I was a SaaS founder trying to, double revenue in the next year, or whatever the big promise or thing that you're going to tackle, here's how I would go about it. Just based on that hook, you will attract a lot more SaaS founders. And if you write that same post and it says, if I was a head of marketing tasked with doubling our lead volume in the next year, here's how I would go about it, I will get a lot more heads of marketing engaging with that content. So I think it is a little bit possible to talk to multiple personas with with a profile, but you definitely need to talk to one very specific persona per post, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That really makes sense. As in, it all depends upon who do you want to cater to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then one more question, Finn. So,
Go for
what
it.
do you think is the best way to generate more leads in B2B services sales? Is it LinkedIn ads? Is it Google ads? Or is
Oh,
there anything
I'm a
else?
one-trick pony. I'm a one-trick pony, and that's LinkedIn for me. I think anything can work. Honestly, and this is my humble opinion as someone who's, far from the greatest business leader, but I feel like a pattern that I keep seeing is the people who do best are the people who pick one thing and they iterate until they crush it. And the people who don't do well are those who are spread too thin. They're doing 7 things. Each of them are quite mediocre. They're running Google ads, and they're running LinkedIn ads, and they're posting on LinkedIn, and they have some YouTube videos, and they do a podcast once a month, and they do none of it really well. And so therefore none of it really works. And anything can work. So I think it's literally just about figuring out, like, where do your customers hang out? Because obviously, if your customers are not on LinkedIn, then you can try as hard as you want, but LinkedIn will not work. But in 2025, you'll be surprised at the types of buyers who are now active on LinkedIn. And then it's just like iterating it until you figure it out and you crush it. Right. And way too many people move on once they hit some output number. But they're like, I want to do LinkedIn and I'm going to post twice a week, and then once they post twice a week, they kind of want to add the next channel, when in reality it's a power law, and you might be posting twice a week, getting 10 likes per post, doing nothing for your business, or really figuring out how to get it to the place where Galaga or Adam Robinson have gotten it to, and driving millions of dollars of new business every quarter. And I interview these people on my podcast, but it's possible. I think Justin Welsh is a good example of that too. I mean, I don't know if you guys know Justin Welsh, but he's kind of that OG LinkedIn guy. But he only did LinkedIn until he like absolutely crushed it. And then he added Twitter. And he started from zero and he got no engagement on Twitter. And he just kept pounding Twitter and figuring out how that thing works until he crushed it. And then he added Instagram. And only once he crushed Instagram, he added a newsletter, right? And way too many people start with doing LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and a newsletter all at the same time, not really getting good at any of them. Anyway, that's the note I'm going to end it on here. This was a nice little start to the new year, a little casual one. Spencer, Prabjot, thank you guys for joining. And I'll keep doing them every week, and we'll bring a little bit more prepared topics. I'm going to have guests on very soon too. So thank you guys for joining. Happy New Year. And I'll see you guys around. If you have any ideas, questions, thoughts, obviously message me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to cover stuff on these shows going forward. All right. Peace out. Bye-bye.